Good evening, everybody. Thank you so much for tuning in. Welcome, welcome, welcome to Poetry Africa. Thank you for joining us tonight. My name is Lebo, Mashile, and I'm pleased to welcome you to an experiment. What has been billed as Lebo, Mashile and Buttery, an experiment. This is the first time that Poetry Africa has invited two artists to just kind of collide and have a conversation, interact with each other with no real expectation of an outcome beyond just us spending time with each other. So Guy Buttery is an accomplished musician, songwriter, a guitarist. He's toured the world, has played on practically every continent playing the guitar for nearly as long as I've been performing. We come from the same generation. He's just a couple of years younger than me. And we've been working forever and ever, but we've never come across each other. So that's the amazing thing about this experiment, is that it gives two South African artists who have been working in different spheres an opportunity to be able to come together and to talk about making art and what art means and what our mediums mean and what it means to be a creative in this crazy time of COVID and how we've been trying to make it work. And then we have a very special collaboration at the end for you. So welcome, Guy. I'm seeing you in the real world of Zoom, not on WhatsApp.
How's it going? It's amazing because we've been talking for the last few weeks, but we've never done a video call. So this is the first time I'm actually seeing you in, well, I don't want to say in the flesh, but in the camera, at least in the phone.
Right, in the camera, outside of Instagram.
Exactly. You're looking amazing.
So are you. You're looking very chilled and relaxed. It's so nice to see you.
Yeah, nice to be here. So cool. Yeah. Nice.
Okay, so let's jump in.
Absolutely.
So for what did life and what did working life look like for you pre-COVID? Like, how did you work? What was your schedule like?
I mean, in relation to what it is now, it was very intense. I was kind of on the road, traveling between 5 and 7 months of the year. I was kind of all over the place, all over the world. Never felt like I was ever in one place too long. And to be honest with you, absolutely loved it. I loved being able to take the music around the world and through the country and share, you know. I think I've missed that. I have missed the ability to, you know, I mean, sometimes some concerts would be like, okay, it's like 2 weeks away. Bam, we're just going to do this. Most of my tours were booked months and months and months in advance, sometimes even more than that. But the ability to get out and perform was pretty easy, particularly in South Africa. And I suppose with that out of the way, I guess I've also maybe realized that I'm a bit of a homebody, but I've never had the opportunity to experience it.
Yeah,
but I mean, I guess that I was on the road. I was traveling a lot. And I think what is different now for me is that I'm in the studio all day long, and I've been super productive in that way. So I haven't really let the flame die. It's just a different kind of candle. I don't know, a different kind of flame. But it's strange. It's almost been 2 years since I've toured, and it's the longest it's ever been. I started performing and touring when I was like 15, 16. I was in high school and I was doing concerts on the weekend, and then you know, in school holidays I was going away as a support act with some bands. And yeah, it's just a different world completely for me. Yeah. And for you? Tell us.
For me, similar as well. I spent a lot of time on the road. I spent about a third of my, let's say 30% of my time away from home, traveling either in another part of the country or in another part of the world. I earned a living. I still earn a living as a performer, as a speaker, as an MC. I do commissioned work, but because it was all built around live events, it meant that I was on the road most of the time. Even, I mean, doing media work meant being on the road. Being on television was also being on the road and being in a studio. And just, I mean, adjusting to being at home all the time. This is the longest I've been in my house, in forever. This is the longest I've been in Joburg in 20 years, which is like crazy,
Yeah.
And it's forced me to to become aware of the fact that being on tour and being on the road sometimes becomes a convenient like way of escaping. I mean, it's hugely gratifying and it's exciting and I love it, and I wouldn't trade my life and touring for anything. I love that part of my life, but I also realized that it gave me an opportunity to escape being here and the issues of here and my home, my space, my city, my country. I mean, it's one of the privileges of being an artist, right? Being able to travel,
For sure.
So being in one place, it's forced me to confront parts of myself that I didn't know I was running from. It's forced me to really deal with being in Johannesburg and to think about the world, but to think about the world from a specific place and to be grounded in this place,
Sure.
Sure.
Can I ask you a personal question?
Yeah. Go for it.
What is it that you feel that you were running from? That you were, when you were on the road, that transitory kind of state? What is that? What is it that... I'm dropping you in.
You're throwing me right in, I think because artists are so sensitive, because we dive very quickly into the language of emotion. I thought that I was really great at confronting my emotions. I thought that I was really great at dealing with things. I thought, I'm empathetic. My life is when I had to really confront the bare bones of myself and my life and my stuff. And I mean, I was running from everything. I was running from my trauma. I was running from relationships. I was running from being still, actually being still,
Sure.
Yeah. So in the stillness, I've discovered so much about myself and discovered that that as much as my creative expression and my creative practice has been so liberating and so healing for me, it also becomes a way. It's like a drug. I can run into it to escape my life and to escape reality as well,
Sure.
And I think that's a necessary thing as a creative, but I also need to like have a healthy and stable life that I love, that's not in a suitcase,
Sure.
Did
you... No, totally, absolutely. And do you feel that this stillness, this sense of being in one place has informed your work in any way? Like, do you feel that because you're kind of more still?
Yes. The stillness has allowed me to hear, being in the house. And I remember in hard lockdown in the city, for the first time, it was my first time hearing silence in the city, and just realizing that, there are birds at like 3-4 a.m. that sing. Oh, wow, that's really interesting. Or the sun looks, the sun at like 5 o'clock in winter is almost like it's orange, like, and the light is diffused. I started noticing nature
beautiful.
and yeah, which was really beautiful. And nature in the city. I've experienced nature in so many different places that I travel to, but nature here in Johannesburg as a natural, has been a revelation for me. And also, I think having to figure out how to adjust and how to adapt has made me realize that it's possible, even in the stillness, to still connect to myself and to the world when there's no way of traveling, which has been amazing.
Sure. I mean, that's
No?
what we've had, really. I mean, that's how we've been able to keep things going. I mean, for me, I've just been recording stuff and kind of releasing it from a farm in KZN, you know, in the middle of nowhere. And I mean, it's been amazing in that way, where there's still some kind of feedback, there's still some kind of exchange. It's different to being in a live room. We've spoken about this a lot. It's not the same. It's not the same energy, but there's something, you know. And I think it's cool that we've been able to do that. I mean, imagine there was a pandemic 20 years ago, or, you know, like in the 80s, when there was just like, you know, you had like a dial-up thing, you had like a, you know, a landline. It's amazing that we, you know, it's fortunate that it's happened in this time for artists like us, because we can kind of still have our say, our 2 cents, whatever it's worth, because that's kind of what we do, right?
That is what we do. That is what we do. And you've been doing, I mean, you've done 6 albums on your farm in the last year, in a whole pandemic. That's incredible.
It's a bit ridiculous almost, but
how long did it take you to do 6 albums before that, pre-pandemic?
That's a good question. I will answer that for you. I think it took about, I don't know, 12 years.
Bravo.
Yeah.
Bravo.
But I mean, it was a lot of it, I mean, I appreciate that, but a lot of it was archival stuff that was kind of, I needed to finish things that, you know, some things that were kind of born completely in this time. But there was also the opportunity to go like, wow, I've actually been doing this for 20 years. And there's a lot of stuff that I didn't end up getting out for whatever reason. There was this thing and that thing. So it was a lot of compiling, spending a lot of time mixing. I built a studio in that time as well. But yeah, I'm kind of grateful for that, because I think a lot of this work for me, it feels like it was important for me to do. Whether no one heard it or not is also irrelevant. It was important for me to like tie those things up, you know. And I like to think there was some cool stuff between it.
That's a beautiful lesson, actually, to go back into what you already have and finish and archive it and revisit work. I think that's a great tip and a great lesson for many artists who are feeling quite despondent and don't know how to move forward in this time, is like to go back into what you've done, go back into the stuff that you still want to finish. You also had a big move, right? You went from Durban to the country. To the city, you left the city and went into the Midlands.
Yeah, I mean, I think for me, there was no need for me to be, I basically, prior to living here, I'm in the KZN Midlands. And prior to that, I was in the town nearest to King Shaka Airport. And I was there kind of for a reason, because I was at the airport every second day, it felt like it. So with the idea of long distance or even short distance travel kind of out of the picture, I decided, well, I didn't really need to be near an airport anymore. So I've gone quiet, I'm growing veggies, and I built a studio, and it's been good.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
Do you hear things, do you hear melodies, and do you hear things differently in the country than you do in the city?
I think I do. I think there's a general stillness that, I mean, I've developed a pretty, strict is not the right word, but a daily meditation practice, which I never had in place before. And I think just the stillness in general has been informing my time sitting behind the instrument a lot, because I feel like I have a lot more time, and that I'm grateful for. I feel like I've got like maybe 80% more time, you know. I was always if I wasn't on the road, I was booking to be on the road, you know. So that has definitely informed the work. And yeah, I've also been making some weird electronic music, which is very free of pulse. I mean, if we can get slightly metaphysical in a way, I suppose there's a sense of time that's not being relayed in the music. There's a you know, the idea for me was to make this music which was had the same tempo as that of a blue whale, the heartbeat of a blue whale, which is 2 BPM. So the idea is to have almost no sense of pulse. And I think to answer your question in a roundabout way, I think that's informed that, because there's a sense of stillness and there's an elasticity in the time more than before. I was like, on the 2nd of August, I'm going to be here, and on the 5th of August, I'm going to be here. So yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, you're right. We in this infinite limbo, you know.
Yeah.
Even the work that I've done, or the writing that I've done, the events that I've participated in, it still feels like we're in a time within a time, you know.
Yeah, totally.
And it feels like a big experiment as well. I mean, poetry is it's the cord that runs through all of the things that I do, but I do a lot of different things, like you know, you are a musician, and musicianship is what runs through all of the different things that you do. But you do what you know, there's the work that you do to survive, there's the recording that you do, there's the production that you do for other people, there's, you know, the artistic practice that you're known for, that you tour with, you know. And I found that having to cultivate so many skills pre-COVID to survive, you know, has given me a bouquet of skills that I can use to be able to survive in this period. And it's been such an experiment to try to figure out how to make work in the confines of this time, you know. I mean, to try to make a whole world live in a little Zoom frame, you know, you know what I mean? Or to create, even on a bigger scale, a show, a production that can live on screen, you know. And what are the elements that go into that? I've had to push my brain and push my artistic practice. And in some, I mean, when I'm not railing against the difficulty and how hard it is to survive and the problems, and I'm not making light of them, because they're real issues in our sector,
for sure,
you know,
for sure.
But when I'm able to get past my fear and my worries about survival, this has been a really interesting time for experimentation.
For sure.
You know, like, when were we going to come across each other on the touring circuit?
Exactly.
When were we going to meet each other in South? You know what I mean?
Yeah. And the strange thing is, I've actually performed at a few Poetry Africa festivals in the past, and we've just never met. So I'm very grateful for this exact situation, that this kind of experiment has presented itself, which I think 2 years ago would never have been the case, you know. So there has been an opening of doors on the virtual side. I mean, I've done quite a bit of that. Sounds like you've done a lot of that. Yeah. But you did MC something the other night. I wanted to ask, you mentioned that in one of our calls. Was that an actual event, or was that a virtual event?
That was, so we recorded live. We were in a studio filming live, but it was a virtual event, you know? I think a couple of, when COVID started, everything was on screen, everything was on Zoom. You know, the news was, I mean, I remember being on the news in my kitchen, right? You know, I remember the first couple of weeks and months when you're seeing into everybody's house, and then you saw all the bookshelves behind the people, and you found the one corner in your house that is decent. And then I think people realize, you know?
Exactly. I did that for this.
Right. Right. And then people realize, like, oh, we're doing things for screen, so this is like television. And then I started seeing more production houses doing the technical for events that would be streamed. You know, the first time that I saw a hybrid event, like it was at a venue. It was recorded with a television crew. I was emceeing. They had speakers. Some of the speakers were live. Some of the speakers were coming in via screen. And I was like, wow, this is really amazing. You know, like, this is amazing. I mean, I've seen that on a different scale, but like, this is, you know, like, to have this as a part of an event with like 50 people and 200 people watching on Facebook, this is incredible. And then it lives online, and people can watch it when they want to. It becomes archived. That was also really interesting, is realizing that because we are recording these events and sharing them online, you're immediately creating an archive.
For sure. Absolutely. And so let me ask you this. How is the performance anxiety on a virtual event versus being in a room? Does it feel the same? Does it feel different? Does it?
Same.
Yeah.
Same.
Yeah. It's totally the same.
Totally. The hard part is you don't get the live energy of the audience.
Yeah.
That's kind of excruciating, actually, right?
Yeah, it is. It is. I remember the first live stream I did. It was for an amazing company in Phoenix, Arizona, in the US, and it was to demonstrate one of their pieces of equipment. And it was about an hour. I don't know, maybe it was 45 minutes. I can't remember. But I remember just thinking, oh yeah, this is going to be kind of normal. And then like the song finishes, and I was like, oh no, this is not the same, because it's just like this kind of dead quiet, and you're like, tune your guitar again, and then you're like, oh no, I felt like I was dying so many deaths, you know. But I suppose it's a different energy. You kind of get into it somehow. I haven't done too many more since then, but I have done a few. But yeah, it's a totally different animal here.
But people in the chat are also echoing what we're saying. Says there's definitely something about stillness. Gabrielle Leroux, amazing artist and friend, also says we are in a time within a time. Yes.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I mean, it's like 2020, 2021. I don't know, years were so defined for me before. Now I'm like, what is time, you know?
Right. I also defined years by the work that I was doing before COVID.
Totally. Absolutely. I knew I was doing that thing then. I mean, I can kind of almost recite everything over the last 20 years, what was happening at a certain stage. Now I'm like, I mean, there was all that recorded work that we spoke about that I put out, but it's all, I don't know which one came first. You know what I mean? It's so bizarre. It's so bizarre.
Yeah, it really is. You've worked a lot with different kinds of artists. Like you've worked with Madala Kunene, but you've also made electronic music. You tour with your own music that's recorded, you know, and as a solo guitarist, you work with other musicians. You've also worked with theater makers, with Neil Coppin for his productions. Like, how do you know where a piece wants to live?
Wow. I mean, I think that, for example, a certain piece can live many, many different ways. I'm not sure if that's the question you're asking me, but I believe that one performance is, I mean, we did speak about this as well in our weeks leading up to this, was that one performance one night and the next night can be a totally different thing. But I think, to answer your question, I think in terms of collaboration with the work, it's very much communication. It's very much, music is a form of communication. We know this. It's a language. And I think that the ability to transform it with different collaborators is very exciting for me. I mean, I haven't really put out a solo record for a long time because I just wanted to work with different people, and I have done quite a bit of that of late. But I think understanding, I mean, collaboration is such a beautiful thing, because one simple singular idea and then another mind, it's a totally different thing, you know. And being very open to understanding another's vision has also been something that I think I've learned, and I think I've got hopefully better at, because I think before I was quite keen to, like, I had such a clear idea what it was, and sometimes that's great, and sometimes in the collaborative form it's like, you got to throw those ideas out the window, and whatever comes together, like you say, work with theater, working with musicians from all around the world, there's different hats, but at the same time it's kind of one and the same thing for me. I mean, I don't know, it must be the same for you. Like if you're either performing, you're acting, you're reciting, you're emceeing, there's a commonality there, but at the same time there's a different, I mean, I'm assuming it's a different energy for you in different spaces.
It is. I think poetry is the lens through which I see the world, you know. So whatever it is that I'm doing, there's a poetic logic that I bring, or an artistic logic that I bring to speaking, to public speaking, or to emceeing an event. There's different opportunities to bring art into it and interact with my creativity or other people's creativity. I love collaboration. Like my best self comes alive in collaboration. I think we spoke about this as well. Like, there's a part of my artistic practice that's very solitary. There's a part of the writing I have to do by myself. The rehearsing I have to do by myself. I have to get the words in my head on my own. But once the work is once the text is written and in my body, then to share it and to interact with other artists, musicians or dancers or visual artists, it makes it come alive in a different way each time. I found it interesting. It's interesting to conceptualize new work with different artists from different mediums, because
sure.
I found that really colors what I do in a very different way. Like, I did a piece called Threads with Moving Into Dance. It was choreographed by Sylvia Glasser. It was for the 30th anniversary of Moving Into Dance Mupatum, and it was my first time working in such an intense way with dancers. And we conceptualized the work together, and I had to start with the intention of writing. And this came out in the process of working, that if we're going to make a piece that works, this piece, even the literature has to move. It has to have a physical sense. It has to have a musicality. It has to be able to be performed within the body, with it,
Sure.
So it made me.
And you're at home with that. You're at home with that physicality.
It made me realize that I live in my head.
Yeah.
Even at the time, my sense of performance was in my head.
Sure.
And it made me realize that the body has a language, whether you're aware of it or not. Like, your body is always talking, is always like activated for as long as your heart is beating. Like, your body is saying something in the world, And
Absolutely.
dancers are very aware of that, are acutely aware of that, and
sure.
the things that dancers say with their bodies. And so it pushed me in a way that made me understand very clearly that working across medium makes me better. It brings more to language. It brings more to poetry, to be able to challenge poetry. Yeah.
Wow. Amazing. It's amazing that you have all of these different forms that you can move through. That's the beautiful thing about poetry, is that you can be an MC, you can be a poet MC, but you can also kind of drop truth bombs on everyone in different contexts. That's amazing. Yeah. That's amazing. I'm so sorry that I missed Threads. I'm so sorry.
It'll come back. On this
subject of
archiving, like, that's been at the forefront of my mind, especially since this pandemic started, is how important archiving is, and how possible it is actually now in this digital era. That you can revisit work and have a meaningful conversation about, like in the live space touring life, that the pre-COVID life, it was like a project's lifespan was like, okay, you do it, you release it, you tour it, and then the project is it's in the air. You as an artist are building a body of work, but in terms of the marketing cycle and the ways that we're kind of taught to think about the lifespan of a piece, a lot of that was really twisted. Like,
for sure.
No,
totally. Absolutely.
Chasing this infinite treadmill, but running on this infinite treadmill. But actually, like, gosh, I'm sure I've, in thinking about the body of work that I've produced, including Threads, I realized that there are messages in Threads that can only be heard now because of the time that we're in.
Sure.
Have you seen that with your work?
I think so. I think it's maybe difficult for me to answer that, because I think different things about my work all the time. Sometimes I hear stuff and I'm like, geez, what was that? That's terrible. Why did you do that? And then other times I hear it and I'm like,
no, you
definitely. No, definitely. No, 100%. 100%. Oh, no, definitely. I'm not even going to get into it, actually, but but on that note,
gives me so much solace because I also look at my stuff and I'm like, oh my God, that was absolute trash. How did I do that?
but I think that that's inevitable, you know. And it's funny. I mean, I think I used to hear some of the earlier stuff that I would put out or that had happened somehow, and I would just be cringing and like dying in a hole. But I think that you know that's led me to here. I'm you know now I think it's cool what I'm doing, but maybe in 10 years I'll be like, "Whoa, what was that stage? What was that phase?" You know, that was when I was out in that farm. You know, what was I doing out there? I don't know. You know, I don't know. You know? So I mean, yeah. I mean, the other thing, sorry, to go back about the archival thing, which is also is that another thing that I put out was I had this concert filmed in this beautiful church. This American crew came down and filmed this amazing concert, and I've had this whole concert sitting on a hard drive somewhere for 4 years.
Wow!
And I thought,
wow!
And I wasn't going to like release a DVD. No one buys DVDs. And what was I going to do? And I was like, oh, I could put it on YouTube, but then I don't know. So I actually just put it out as like a live streamed event, and it did super well. It was like a whole bunch of people like streamed in and watched it, and it was like cool. There was a home for it finally, you know. And
fantastic.
Yeah, so there are things like I'm hoping that I'm always trying to archive stuff. I'm actually been a bit of a hoarder in that way. But
I love that. Yeah. I love that. I think that's a habit that we need to build. I think that that there's like programs that should be designed around that, because I think we lose a lot of cultural memory in South Africa. You know, it's like an artist dies or creative dies, and then all of the memory of the you know the shared memory of that person, it goes with them, and it shouldn't be like that, especially for artists.
For sure. I mean, I think that like there's a few archives in this country which for me have done amazing work. There's a guy named Dave Marks who was he was from KZN, and he apparently recorded, he said 2,000 concerts between like 68 and like whatever the early 90s. I mean, he's got a huge archive, and the Stellenbosch University took it all on. And like for me, that's really important work, like those beautiful, unique collaborations that happen, that like he was there recording somehow, you know, like, I mean, yeah, he's got a concert of me and Madala Kuneni from 2002. I've never heard it, but I know he's got it. You know what I mean? And I was like, that stuff, I would like 20 years ago. I mean, maybe it's terrible, but so what, you know? So, yeah.
Amazing. I'd love to see you and Madala. You know, I was thinking about the fact that, like, I mean, we spoke a lot about how we've both had to integrate like technology and skills and stuff into what we do in social media and you know, and then you get an artist like Madala, he plays, he's a guitar maestro, and that's what he does. He plays, he sings, he's a musician, he's exceptional at what he does. He's like a walking archive in and of himself, you know.
Absolutely.
I cannot expect Madala Kunene to now learn Instagram. Like, if he wants to, great.
For sure.
We have to, like, is that what we have to become? It's such a, I feel a push and a pull about that.
No, totally. I mean, this morning I did a video piece for a radio station in New York who puts out video as well. And I don't know, they're mainly a radio station, but they're doing some video stuff at the moment. And I was sitting there and I'm like, I'm putting the camera somewhere, but like I know how to record sound, but I'm like, I'm not a videographer, you know. Why am I having to do all this? But so I hear you. I mean, I hear you. Like, there's these demands of like of social media, or like creating content all the time, and it feels a little bit disposable sometimes, maybe.
True.
But I think at the same time, I suppose there's a way to kind of activate things. But for me, I'm interested in big, complete projects with a vision, with an idea, with a statement, if there is one, you know. So yeah, the Instagram thing can be quite ephemeral and you know, can I say mindless? Am I allowed to say that? Sometimes.
Yeah, it can be. It can be.
Yeah.
It can be. It comes with its own hecticness, its own its own visual standards, and that you kind of have to conform to be seen. And but at the same time, it's also, I mean, it's a catch-22. It's because it's exposed me to creatives that I would have never known. Incredible, like boundary breaking people, activists, artists, models, whoever, but I mean, that's so much of the morality around technology and this time, is this. It's like, it makes so much possible, but at the same time, it comes with so many demons. And how do you,
Yeah.
But I guess that, I mean, I guess that's been what it's been since from, the time the camera was created, or the gramophone, the radio, every human technological advancement comes with pros and cons. But it just, I mean, we're definitely living through an era where this is accelerated. And what that means for creatives. I mean, I think that there's tremendous possibility in a country where the sector has collapsed. We're even lucky to be having this conversation. Extremely lucky, and that's messed up. You shouldn't be lucky to be surviving. You know what I mean? Like, that's horrible.
Absolutely.
That we are, but then the fact that we can be like our own little production entities and marketing entities means maybe that we don't have to rely on these institutions for our survival, because they don't care about us.
For sure. Yeah, I remember you saying like in the beginning of lockdown, like the very beginning, when with South Africa was like March. It was March last year, right? I think we kind of got level 5 lockdown. And I remember you saying how you went and did this, I think you said it was Instagram or a Facebook Live, and you were like, oh, wow, people tuned in. And there was this, there was a voice. I had something to say, and it was heard. And, as with that in mind, I suppose, like, the pros and cons of it all. I mean, it is a double-edged sword, but it is also kind of hard to remove completely, now.
Yeah. Hey, I want to get into the comments a little bit, because we've got some cool ones. Thank you so much, guys,
I can't see your comments. So.
Okay. Tando
so
Tando says, who's an incredible poet. She's also they're also going to be at Poetry Africa this year. Astounding writer. It says, absolutely enjoying this session. Thank you so much, Tando. Kabiso Zanabo Vili says, I love this chat. Humans and artists exploring humaning and artisting and rediscovering both. Fantastic comment. Thank you, Klaviso. Thank you. Mzuzugile Soni says, it took us socially distancing from each other to make us realize how human we are and how much we need each other. I love the engagement and how both Guy and Lebo pivoted during this challenging period. Pivoted. A ballet term, right? A dance term. Pivot. Thank you, guys. Thanks for those comments.
Cool.
I wanted to talk about the language of music, the music of language. Like, I have musician envy. I wish I could make music. I mean, I do. I guess I dabble in making music. I record. I work with musicians. I've done albums. I wish I was a musician, because you have a universal, like, there is no language that is more universal than music. You've played in countries where you don't speak the language. If I perform in a country where people don't speak the language, they can trip on, the performance and kind of feel it, but there needs to be translation. You don't have to translate what you do.
I mean, I also make largely instrumental music, so I really have that as a plus. But yeah, I mean, I think that's a beautiful thing to acknowledge, I think, and a beautiful thing to say. I appreciate that, because I think we should remind everyone about the universality of music. I mean, even when I'm listening to music that isn't sung in a language that I understand, it makes no difference to me. I mean, I grew up on so much different music that was not in my own mother tongue, But it made me think of a story that I did this tour with this Tuareg musician, a guy named Aluseni. And he was from Niger, and he was doing this beautiful desert kind of blues guitar thing, Ali Fakature, Tinawara and stuff. And we did this whole tour. We played through Zimbabwe, we played through Swaziland, Mozambique, South Africa. I think it was about 10 concerts. And I didn't understand. We had no common language at all, but we played all of this music together for 2 weeks, you know. And I on the very last concert, we did this live TV thing at the baseline in Joburg, and there was someone there who could translate for us. And on the last day, basically the very end of the tour, the translator said, "No, but you're feeling the first beat in the wrong place. You're always feeling it on the second beat." And I was like, "Oh, damn it! That was the whole time I was misunderstanding the rhythm, you know." And amazing, you know, because I mean, there is a universality there, but as a result, I mean, of actually not having that communication, we created other sort of rhythmic structures or kind of music, you know. If I had known what it is that he was asking, then maybe it would have been more expected for him. But I mean, so those kind of worlds joined. But yeah, music is a universal language, and I hear you. I mean, I suppose that is tricky as a poet to go to, you know, to Niger and you don't speak Tamashek and you have to recite, you know. But I guess that you have the ways. I mean, also you have the physicality of acting. I mean, there's a universality there. I mean, that's understood. I mean, mannerisms and gestures, that's a language. We were talking about that. I mean, in the body.
Yeah, and the delicious discovery of a writer, a poet in a language that I don't speak through translation. It's like that. It always feels like, you know, like unwrapping a chocolate for the first time. It's so exciting. Or when you hear the poetry of a language that you don't know through translation, you know, when people share proverbs or idioms or ways of swearing, or, you know, sometimes in the natural stuff like the names of food, or, you know, what the popular singer's most famous song is, you know, like you hear the magic of the language, you know, for the first time. Like there's The Secret Life of Baba Segi's Wives, by Lola Shoneyin, who runs Ake Poetry Festival in Nigeria. It's her novel. It's an incredible novel, you know, about this. It's about a crazy, for this man who's married to all these women, and, you know, like the things that go on. It's fantastic. She said the way that she writes, it's like you can hear Yoruba, but it's written in English, but you hear the personality, the humor, the idioms, the poetry, you know, the eloquence of Yoruba in English. And she said it was deliberate, you know. She was like, I did that because I wanted people from all over the world to really hear my language, you know.
Wow.
So yeah, translation. I mean, I think there's things that we take for granted in this country. Like, you look at a place like KZN that has produced so many incredible artists. I mean, there's so many incredible artists in this forum. I just want to acknowledge that the people who have made comments, like Gabrielle Leroux is an extraordinary visual artist and activist. Mzuzugile Soni, another kind of creative, the founder of Brown Sense, this online Black networking business community with more than 200,000 people, traders on it.
Wow.
Kabaniso Vili, activist, poet from the Eastern Cape. He's also going to be at the festival. Beautiful writer, Tando Fuze, who I love. So I'm like, we've got creatives listening to us, and it's like amazing to me that South Africa produces creatives faster than we can sustain them. It's amazing to me also that we don't acknowledge the power of our creativity. Like, a place like KZN produces, and we spoke about this, like KZN will produce somebody like you, produce Madala Kunene, produce Istra Tamia, produce Mbaqanga, produce Durban House.
Yeah, it's amazing. Yeah, it seems incredible. To be such a, it is incredible. I mean, I have a theory about it, particularly with Durban, because it's not the most international city in the world. I mean, Johannesburg gets a lot of people, Cape Town gets a lot of people, Durban, not a lot of people come to, you know? And I think that insular lack of reference kind of creates this little melting pot, or this own kind of condensed energy. I think because there's not so much of a of a looking out as much as the looking in, you know. And I love that about KZN. I mean, for me, there's just so many great artists that have come out of here. I mean the whole country for sure, but I think there is something about that slightly insular kind of, you know, world perception or whatever it is. I don't know. Maybe I'm speaking about myself in some ways, but I think that I'm intrigued in the individual and not so much in the fad or the thing that's happening. And I think there has been a lot of that. And then in that way, there's been these pioneers, you know, that have come out. So totally.
Yeah. Even in poetry spaces. I mean, there are
For
poets
sure.
from KZN who are not known in Johannesburg, but have hundreds of thousands of followers who are literally famous and able to work in KZN, in isiZulu, our icons.
Wow.
isiZulu. I mean,
Yeah.
like that kind of insularity that is able to give rise to like creativity that is supported, you know, and allowed to grow, I think is exciting. I think is healthy, you know, not an insularity that cuts itself off and detaches and doesn't invite anybody in, but an insularity that says like, this is what we have and it's worth valuing. It's ours, you know?
Absolutely. No, that's kind of what I mean. I think that there is that, like, there's an individuality there, you know, and it is not, it's inviting, it's inclusive, but it's also it's kind of rooted and it's kind of held, you know.
Yeah.
So yeah.
I mean, I think even a festival like Poetry Africa and a place like Joburg, and Poetry Africa has toured and done performances that have done very well in Joburg, like, you know, but I think it would not be the same experience if it was a Johannesburg institution. It would have very quickly gotten swallowed into the mainstream and into hype and into, you know, it would have been a fad that peaked and then changed and then left and then something, you know, like Joburg things move too fast. Everything gets swallowed by the mainstream and spit out very quickly, you know, in a cannibalistic way, you know. I mean, there's a wonderful way in which cultures collide and, you know, there's this incredible hybridity, but there's also a way in which everything is designed for commercial consumption, you know, and so many poets that I know that have come to, and artists that have come to Poetry Africa. I mean, Poetry Africa also is so expansive in the way that it thinks as well. Like the fact that you as a guitarist have played Poetry Africa, that you're being included in this artistic conversation with a poet, you know, it speaks very much to the ethos of Poetry Africa. And I think why it endures also is because of the space as well, because Durban is what it is and KZN has this intense appreciation for culture. I've heard poets from all over the world say that they've never been received the way that they've been received at Poetry Africa. That's amazing. Yeah, it's very special.
Wow, amazing.
Yeah.
And tell me, how do you feel that so that living and working and being in Johannesburg has informed what did you do? I mean, there's obviously, that's a big thing because you've been there a long time. I mean, it's an energy, that city, you know.
I have a love-hate relationship with Joburg. I mean, my great-grandparents migrated to Joburg. You know, my grandparents were relocated during forced removals to Soweto from Sophia Town, from Western Native Township. I have a long relationship with the city. And then my family went into exile and then came back. So, you know, I unlike a lot of people from Johannesburg, people from Joburg usually come from somewhere else. Home is somewhere else. Like home for me is Joburg, you know, with all of its messiness and chaos and gifts and opportunities and possibilities and that consumptive nature. I think that's what I was running from as well. You know, it's like people come to Joburg. You know, Joburg is built on the mines. Like there are these big holes that run under this province and our country, really, you know, different parts of our country. But in Johannesburg, it feels quite pronounced. It feels like there's an empty belly in the earth that is always hungry. It's like you took the gold and the diamonds and the things out. What are you're going to put your soul back in here, you know, and woo!
Yeah.
So I also found that traveling and leaving Joburg and coming back to Joburg helped me to fall in love with Joburg again. I would come back and then I would feel like, oh, you know, experience it as a new thing sometimes. But I guess the frenetic, COVID has helped me to be in the city without feeling consumed by the frenetic pace of the city.
Sure.
Yeah. To
No,
find
absolutely.
stillness in the city, which I've never been able to do. Yeah.
That's amazing. That's amazing. That is amazing.
We have a collaboration.
We do indeed.
Before we get load shedded.
Yeah, we both got load shedding, guys. So at 8 o'clock it's gonna go down. So we got something to share with you.
Yeah.
So
I guess this is also born out of, I mean, just the desire for us to collaborate with each other, because I mean, why not? We are here and it's exciting and you're amazing, and you know, like why not? But also like this is very much born out of the constraints of the time that we're in, right? We're on Zoom.
Totally.
You play guitar. You can't really play guitar on this platform because you need to be able to amplify it, and you know, and also this platform, I want to say in advance as well that this platform is optimized for voice. We just found out from our friends at Hear My Voice, who are running the technical for this for this conversation. They've told us that Zoom prioritizes the spoken word more than it prioritizes music. So if you hear any weird sound quality, please bear with us. It's not us, but again, like this is performance in this era that we are living in.
Totally.
I'm so happy to be playing with you.
No, let's do it. I'm excited.
Okay.
Cool. I'm going to be playing this little guy, the mbira.
Beautiful instrument. Reminds me of Chorizo Mairere from Zimbabwe.
Exactly. We spoke of her. Too beautiful.
Yeah.
Are you good? Are you ready?
I'm ready. All right. Okay, here we go. Never heard before, never seen before, even by us. Once we were travelers. Wherever we found water and warmth, we were home. Once, when we knew the ocean's true names, you could send a beat from Indian to Atlantic, Giza to Great Zimbabwe. A scripted message traveled from heart to hands, to drums, to dust, to ear, to village, to kingdom, songs of divination, songs of destruction. Coded connections contained in clan names and cattle. Cosmic formations and the stars that hold both beauty and tears. Once, we knew that a human being was more than a two-legged consumer, more than a permit or passport holder, more than a slave or child of war. An African emotion is a tangent in time, a multi-dimensional expression of lineage, a collection of talents, mined through survival, made manifest in transcendence. We transcend borders of geography, skin, and mind. We make empires out of empty space, create culture out of chaos and catastrophes. Through turbulence and turmoil, we never stop. Like the flow of our resources, we never stop. Like the tides of our geniuses, we never stop. Like the forces that would divide us, we never stop. Once, a timeline broke like a wave, crashing against the shores of limitations, drawing information superhighways across the limbs of this continent. Her immortal face, an army of colors, the flesh of the young, the wisdom, the knowledge of ancients, the wealth of the womb of the world. Hers is the bread on every table. Hers is the creamy milk of kings. Hers is the fat of fertile lands. Hers is the beauty of minds reborn. Our borders will melt in each other's tongues. Our pains will find refuge in each other's gods. Our children will find love in each other's nation. Our actions will be judged in each other's songs. Once there was a place where men put down their guns and picked up the souls of their people, where power was measured as the growth of your neighbor. How many souls have awakened because you are alive? How many lives intersect when we see ourselves through our own eyes? How many leaders will it take to make a continent whole? In the marketplace, we will be like mothers, measuring cloth, grain, and gold, like futures in the mouths of her children.
That was so beautiful. Mwah, love that.
Wow, even me, I loved it. Even me.
Oh, I love that.
Let's see
So
the
beautiful.
chats. Let's see the chats. Let's see the chats. Woo! The people loved it. The people loved it. Yay! Kwazarui, incredible poet, says yeah. Poet and teacher at University of Johannesburg. He says, thoroughly enjoyed this conversation. Two national treasures sharing gems. Thank you. Thank you, Kwaz. Gabriella says, this conversation is such a gift. Thank you both. And also thank you, Poetry Africa. Aisha KG, another poet, incredible woman, says, love this conversation. Feels this itself is a time within a time. Thank you, Poetry Africa. Mzuzu Gilesoni says, you shouldn't be lucky to be surviving. It's the truth. Fazia David says, fantastic. Thank you, Lebo and Guy. Oh, thank you so much, Guy. Yeah.
Thanks, guys. What a treat.
Oh, what a pleasure it has been interacting with you and getting to know you. I hope we get
what
a
a
chance
pleasure.
to collaborate. Wow.
Absolutely. Absolutely. We've got to, when we are in the same space, we need to, yes, definitely.
Yeah.
I would love that. I would love that.
I would love that too. I would love that too. Gambira was the perfect choice, actually. I could hear it. There were times when it fell out, but I could hear it. It stayed. And just that lullaby, beautiful, like ethereal quality that it has is so, so fun.
Such an instrument. Oh, and you were magic. Magic.
And you were magic. And this is not even your instrument. Like, if you do this on Gambira, what you do on the guitar.
It's all Photoshop. It's Photoshop. None of it's real. It's smoke and mirrors.
It's all real. You are all real. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Lebo. It's been such a treat. Thank you so much. And I look forward to connecting again and again.
So do I. Thank you, Poetry Africa. Thank you for
Thanks so much, guys.
Yeah, this has been wonderful. I hope you give many more artists the chance to be able to collide and interact and get to know each other and share the experience with the audience. I think it's so valuable. Thank you to everybody who tuned in. Thank you to the creatives and artists who tuned in. It's so meaningful that you've been a part of this conversation because we speak to each other with a shorthand, you know, we have a similar language. And thank you to the Hear My Voice, to the incredible team at Hear My Voice for making this possible and supporting us with technical Guy Buttery.
Sending so much love to you and all the viewers. Thanks so much for tuning in, guys. What a treat.
Thanks, everybody. Bye.
Bye.